today we have Jonathan Olaya from, where are you from, Jonathan?
Originally Seattle, Washington.
I've never met anyone from there, so that's pretty cool.
The
Where's your
great
family from?
Northwest.
Where's your family from?
My dad is Colombian. He's from Medellín, Colombia. And my mom's side, they're German and British. But they've been in America for 3 generations now.
Oh, wow. Okay. So before I get into your story and who you are, I kind of want to give a little backstory about how we met. So I remember when I got out of college, I came back to Miami and I enrolled at a gym, which we're not going to give them free promo. And I remember at the time you were the manager, right?
Yeah.
And I remember I walked in and I've always been very social, very personable. So I remember we connected and I remember that one day I walked in and I was like, where's Jonathan? They're like, Jonathan's not here. And then I remember I hit you up and I was like, Jonathan, what happened? Can you tell me what happened? Can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, well, I had the benefit of developing myself in a gym, a company. Um, I was there for 7 years. I became a general manager. I was the youngest GM to open a new gym. It's LA Fitness. It's okay, I'll say it. But it was great there because I was able to develop all my sales skills and be personable and do conference calls and learn about responsibility and accountability. And I had worked there for 7 years. And, you have to work 60 hours, 6 days a week in sales jobs. They're very intense.
Yeah.
And my dad is an artist, and I've always loved art, but I never thought I'd want to become an artist. And when I was like 25, being here in Miami and starting to see Wynwood come up, that was almost 10 years ago. And just seeing like murals on the street and thinking that people get paid to paint a wall, that's actually a job, it kind of sparked an interest in me. I didn't want to become a muralist right away, for example. I just had this urge to create. So at work, while we were, running the gym, doing sales and stuff, I would doodle heavy on my notepad. But I mean like real intricate doodles, 30, 40 hours a week while I'm at work. I'm also doodling while I'm managing the gym.
Yeah.
And no, it just came to a point where I was like, I don't want to trade all these hours every week for money and not create anything for myself, whether that's my own business, creating artwork, that sense of where you give so much of yourself for a company and you're not really invested in the company. You're
Right.
just
An
their,
employee, you're a number.
yeah, you're their asset, their tool. And then I had bought a house. I had a Tesla Model S, and I felt like I kind of accomplished what I wanted to. Like I was a general manager, I owned a home, I drove the car I wanted. So at that point, what do you want to do after
Yeah.
you kind of like work towards those things? Maybe you want to travel, you want to live more, you want to see sunsets, you want to experience things. And when you're working 60 hours a week, you're not going to be able to experience those things. So yeah, I kind of just made a scheme and a plan to disappear from the workplace because it felt like almost like you're in a cult at that point. After so many years and making good money, it's hard to leave.
Yeah.
So yeah, I made a plan and then I left.
So would you say that the reason why you decided to quit was because you just didn't have a sense of fulfillment or you felt like there was something more out there for you, pursuing something that you actually enjoy and you're passionate about?
Well, it went so well for me at the gym that I kind of accomplished what I wanted. I was very fulfilled with my position. I bought a home. I had the car I wanted. And then the next step was becoming a vice president. But I didn't want to become, a dick, an asshole, and just be on top of people and
Yeah.
harass people because that's what they did to me. So I just kind of thought about my future, and I already accomplished what I wanted to at that company. And so it was like, what am I going to do now? And I was creating and drawing all day at work. And my dad is an artist, and we were living together at the time. And, I was just like, oh, maybe I'll become an artist slash content creator for businesses, create their content, manage their social medias. And Yeah, I actually had an art podcast.
Oh, really?
I filmed 25 episodes.
Nice.
Yeah, I did the whole setup. I put the cameras. I'd go to the artist's studio. We'd sit down, talk for like 2 hours. I'd edit it all. I did like 25 episodes.
Why'd you stop?
I'm going to renew it.
Do it.
I'm going to. I'm going to. It's just one of those projects. As an artist, you put a bunch of projects on pause. But yeah, so I just decided, there's more to life. I want to do other things. And so the plan was super good. I decided I'm going to rent out 3 bedrooms in my 5-bedroom house at the time, drive Uber, and then pick up these new clients, social media packages, flying the drone, and trying to sell my artwork. So I kind of had this like 4-headed monster to create
Hustling,
cash.
heavy.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only option when you're pursuing something. You have your own business, you have your credit business, and now you're doing the podcast, and I'm sure you're doing a bunch. You have
I have other businesses, yeah.
yeah, your drop ship
Yeah.
clothing company,
Print on demand, yeah.
print on demand. And so when you're doing that, you have to kind of be all in.
Yeah.
Because, well, you can also take the route of working at your job and then in your spare time building your brand or your other hustles. But at some point, you have to take the jump into the deep end
Yeah.
and struggle, figure it out. You just have to do that, because if you don't do that, then you'll never really know what, your full potential could have been in that endeavor.
I agree. What advice, now that we're on that note, what advice would you give people who are in that predicament right now where they're 1 foot in, 1 foot out? I think we've all been there. Shoot, I've been there. And it's so hard, but it's true what you're saying. You kind of just have to wake up one day and say, this is it. Like, I'm going to do it. And the issue is we think too much about it.
We do think too much. There was a point where I was so committed to becoming a full-time artist, muralist, that I was like, you know what? I'm willing to risk everything for that. It got really hard at a certain point where, like, you almost lose the mortgage on your home, or they repo your car 1 month or whatever, like crazy shit that you wouldn't even imagine. And when you're working towards that bigger goal, hopefully you don't lose all that stuff or fuck up, but it's kind of worth it. You have to make that commitment. And that's what life's all about. I mean, life goes by fast. Anyone could be gone tomorrow. Even if you do live your whole life, it goes by like that.
Yeah.
So I think it's good to, pursue your dreams and chase them. If you fail, it's all good. Get a job. Start over.
Try again. Yeah.
Try again. You can try it. I mean, before you get too old, you could try 20 times. I mean, I'm pretty sure I've already done 10 times of failing. But advice that I would give somebody who does want to commit full-time to their passion and their hobby would be, you have to kind of develop assets that give you some cash flow. So if you're really good at singing, for example, and you want to be a singer, it might be hard to make money right away pursuing your dream as a singer or songwriter. But if you're also good at modeling or, taking pictures or coaching kids how to sing, you can generate cash flow with things that are still in your niche, which feed into what you're doing. So when I say that, I mean, try to find ways to make money not only in what you're pursuing, but things kind of around it to build a little bit of that structure, because there'll be months where you might not generate enough
from the business
income from what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure you can speak on that, right? Like, how do your different hustles kind of funnel into your bigger picture?
Yeah, I mean, that's great advice. The thing is that when you're going through this, you don't think about it, but you go into survival mode. I went into survival mode. So
I'm in survival mode right now.
So it's like you do what you got to do, whether you got to Uber, you got to, I don't know, start bartending, whatever it is. But that's not like a thing, like a long term. It's just like the right now. And I think a lot of people beat themselves up or they compare themselves to other people.
That they had to do that.
Right.
And I mean, that's just like a charge. It's like a boost up. It's like, here. Because that also gives you a little consistency, some discipline, if you have to be somewhere at a certain... It can also humble you, too. It can make you more appreciative of your dream pursuing pursuit.
Yeah, I agree. It's tough, because I think there's so many things. Like, I don't know about you, how it was for you. I think you mentioned already that this is something that you did with your dad because your dad was an artist, right? So I feel like there's people like yourself who it kind of already runs in the family or someone's kind of already taken that first step. But that doesn't take away from the fact that it's difficult. But then there's people who like no one in their family has ever done that. And so they're the first ones taking
And their
everything
family
on.
might be hating too.
Yeah. Or they just don't support you because they don't understand.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's a blessing I have. I would say there's not anyone in my family that isn't like super excited for me and for what I do. So that's a huge plus. I've never thought about that as a challenge, but I know artists who, they're I mean, I'm a black sheep in my own ways, but not
Right.
creatively. So that's
Right.
cool.
How would you say I commend you for working with your dad? Do you guys work a lot together? Like you do a lot of jobs together?
No, not really. My dad is more of he just loves to make art. He's not really like a hustler. He's a professional artist and he's sold paintings his whole life, but he doesn't pursue networking or selling his work. He just loves to draw every day. He'll draw random portraits of people, he'll draw still life, he'll also make canvases, but that's his main passion is just creating the art. That's where I would say I'm kind of like half half.
Mm-hmm.
I look at it as art is only part of the main operation. You have to be able to do marketing, networking, you have to maintain your business. There's a lot of things that go into operating
I was gonna ask you
a
more about that.
business.
I always admire artists because I think your line of work, not to take away from anyone's, because business in general is challenging, and it pretty much makes you question everything about yourself to the point where you have to break yourself down and like build yourself back up, right, through the experiences that you have. But I feel like artists have that times 10 because everyone thinks their stuff is good, right? Like everyone thinks like, oh, I have a gift, I have a talent, but it's what you're saying. It's like one thing is having the talent. The other aspect is monetizing it. So what advice would you have for other creatives that know that they have talent, and are trying to pursue this as a career just like you have done pretty much?
Yeah, real quick on what you were talking about, there's a meme where it's like an entrepreneur
Mm-hmm.
and they're like in the center of the meme and the background is the world like on fire. And it's
Yeah.
like me on a daily mission through my entrepreneurial life. And it can feel like that sometimes. Specifically to being an artist and trying to monetize it, a lot of artists, they have a style,
Mm-hmm.
right? One thing that kind of defines them, something they feel comfortable with, something that's how they express themselves. And I would say there's kind of two routes you can take as a artist. One would be building that brand identity and like mastering your style. But that can be a little challenging because not everybody is going to hire you or pay you to create that.
Right.
But the rewards of doing that down the road can be incredible because there's so much brand recognition behind your style, your character, whatever you're doing. So that route, it's a little more of a full commitment because it's going to be hard to sell canvases, paint murals of just your one style,
Yeah.
right? Because now you're shrinking your target market a lot. Me, I took another route. I like to learn new styles and kind of challenge myself all the time. So if you want to do something, I mean, nowadays I'm a little more picky, but before I would do essentially what the client wanted. I wouldn't shy away from projects or not do projects because I wasn't familiar with them. I would just kind of figure it out, make it happen. And doing that has allowed me to now have a wide variety of styles. Now I can do realism, I can do patterns, I can paint your commercial building without artwork with a sprayer. I can make you stencils, 3D sculptures. The array of things that I can do for a client now are super, super wide. So that helps me because now I have, a funnel of business that comes into me that it's like random. It's like, oh, do your pattern here, paint realism here, do a logo here, do letters here. So that's cool. So you can kind of take one of two routes. You can kind of commit to a style or you can kind of learn to do a bunch of things. But either way is good. It's just kind of your preference.
Right. No, I mean, I'm curious because, like I said, I know a lot of artists, and it's true what you're saying. Like, everyone's style is so different. But at the end of the day, I think business in general comes down to people do business because they like you, they know you, and they trust you. And in this case, they like your style. So, how would you describe Jonathan's style of artwork?
Well, I have a common, popular 2D pattern. I don't really know how to describe it, but people will say it's like a worm pattern or a doodle pattern. But to me, it's like a hieroglyph,
Hmm.
kind of, sort of, that just comes in to me and I just doodle it. That one's really cool. I like that. And then I have a couple variations of that same doodle. And then just, I really do like painting realism. I like doing the logo installations. And I just like learning new things. So I guess if there was a pattern you might recognize me by, it would be my 2D doodle. But that's just one of the many things I like to do.
What have been some of your top pieces of work that you've,
Top projects?
yeah.
Well, I've painted a lot of canvases, but my canvases don't really define me or direct me or, you know, produce consistent income. So I would refer to myself more as a muralist.
Hmm.
And my mural projects, um, I've done a lot of projects now. I'd say like at least, I mean, it's hard to keep track, but maybe 300 total projects.
That's a
And those
lot.
are like, you know, big murals, small murals, multi-wall murals. Maybe it's 250, but I know it's like over 200 for sure. And then I would say painting internationally is awesome. I did a really cool project at two Airbnbs on the ocean in Tulum, Mexico. I painted a 15 mural project in Medellín, Colombia, which was huge. In meters, it was like over 1,500 square meters, some ridiculous amount. And then I painted a project in Hamptons, New York. I was in Barcelona. And so that's all a little more recent. I would say the last 2 years that I really started to travel and paint. And traveling and painting is awesome because you're kind of like a nomad. Well, you're a nomad for sure, but you have to travel and like make sure you bring the type of spray tips you need. Maybe you have to sneak a certain type of can on the plane that you're not allowed to
Oh,
because you can't get that color, like
scandalous.
a shadow spray, or I have to bring a machine. So when you paint abroad or in other places, you really have to think and project manage because you need so many things for your projects and you're in the middle of nowhere in another
Yeah.
country. So traveling is awesome because, I get to be in another place, kind of on vacation. I'm still working. It's a business trip. So that's like, I would say that's one of the most exciting things now is traveling and painting.
How do you get those gigs that are not here in the US?
Well, first you have to establish your home base. So, before I started traveling and painting, I had done a bunch of projects in Miami. And then luckily, I have a big family in Colombia and I've been networking and traveling there a lot. So I've been getting projects from Colombia, but that's also like a second home base that I have. In terms of the projects in the other locations, those all stem from my home base projects. Clients that I have here in Miami that have businesses in other places. So everything comes from your network. So I guess when enough people know what you do and all the skills you have, then, the projects come where they come. Also, when I do travel to a place that I don't have work, it's really easy for me to just like walk into a restaurant or a business that has a wall and just show the manager that, hey, I'm in town for a week. I can paint you this at a significantly less cost because I'm traveling and I'm here and I want to do this for you guys, kind of build some
Marketing.
urgency.
Yeah.
And that's also fun too. So like kind of being able to pop up in a random place, and trade lodging or food or perks, get a little money, and I'm still on vacation. So
Yeah.
that's always fun too, is finding projects when you're traveling.
How many times have you done that?
Psh, I did it in Barcelona. In Barcelona, I just planned on going there for a month, and I think I painted two small gigs that I got some money for, and then I painted like 3 street murals with a friend, just where we put our own money and paint for fun. Because Europe's really wild, actually. Europe, they have so much graffiti that it's just part of their landscape and their culture. Like, it's accepted, kind of. So they try to control it. So they have parks where people go to paint, and they have walls that they kind of leave for graffiti artists.
Nice.
So it has its own kind of culture.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know that. But I did notice that I went to Madrid, and I was pretty much all over Spain. And I did notice a lot of graffiti. Like when I was on the train, I was like, whoa. I felt like I was in New York City at one point.
No, they bomb those trains crazy. The trains you get arrested for right away. But it's so weird. I made a friend there in Barcelona who's been like spray painting the train since he was like 12. That's what they do when they're little kids. They steal spray paint, like 2, 3 cans from the store. And then they go and they like break into the train station and they sneak around, and they'll be there from like, I don't know, 2 a.m. or later, like 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. The sun comes up. And if the security people there at the train yard are walking, they all hide, and it's crazy. And he does it so casually now. He wanted to take me, and I couldn't build up the courage to do it because I've had a couple bad experiences trying to do graffiti. Like super bad odds. Like I've done it like 4 times, and the 3 out of the 4 times, like horrible shit happened.
Did you get arrested?
No. It was wild. I'd prefer not to talk about it, honestly.
That's
but
fine.
it made me not too eager to
Right.
do graffiti anymore. And so he just, would shock me because he's like, yeah, bro, I'm going to go tomorrow super casually. And he did a whole graffiti piece, and he like shouted me out. They like tag your name or something in the corner to shout you out. And he just did it super casually. He didn't care. And then I have another friend named El Chupet Negre, and he's like one of my mentor artists, like one of the first people that I started filming him, and then he kind of introduced me to spray paint. At that time, I was drawing and making content for artists. And he's my boy, and he lives in Barcelona. And it's so funny when you're with a local because they do shit how locals do it.
Yeah.
And you're like there, you're just kind of tagging along, like, oh, I hope we don't get in trouble for this.
Yeah.
I don't really know what's happening, but I'm along for the ride. That's one of the. I think your senses are most awakened and alert, like when you're traveling somewhere, but when you're with a local too.
I agree.
Because when you're just not with a local, you're kind of, you're just going with what tourists do. You don't experience anything local. And when you're with locals, it's such a culture shock that you're just like, it's like being on a roller coaster nonstop. You don't know what they're going to do or where they're going to take you because they live a whole different life.
That's true. What would you say it has been for you as an entrepreneur and as an artist, one of the biggest hurdles that you've had to overcome? And that maybe not necessarily in the start, but in the middle, if there's anything that you're currently trying to overcome, and it could be anything. It could be, about personal in terms of overcoming your mindset or something that you physically have to overcome.
Oh, I think it's important for any creative, whether you're whenever you have a client that's commissioning you to do something, whether it's content, painting, the long list of things. But I would say I had a lot of anxiety at the beginning when, you're halfway through a mural and the client comes outside and they want to look at it.
Critique?
Or you just know in their mind that they're thinking like, I wonder if he's going to paint that spot or like. So before, a lot of the times, my own anxiety would kind of go up in those moments where I'm like, oh, I wonder what they're thinking, or I hope they don't say anything, or hopefully they're not annoying about this. But then after you do so many projects and you deliver such a good project, you know that the client is always happy because you're also doing it with all your love and your care, and you want to deliver a product that's good. So once you kind of do a lot of projects or deliver a lot of good, like you with, helping people with their credit, like, that you deliver. So when you're proposing, when you're working for somebody, your confidence is high, and then that channels to the client, the confidence, right? So after a certain amount of projects and confidence that I had built, now, I just very calmly like tell the client like, oh, you're going to love it when it's over. This is the progress. this is going to be more mind-blowing than the mock-up. I just have a real sense of ease now while I'm working. I don't get caught up in the progress, or like I don't get stressed out while I'm painting. I just know I'm going to figure it out and everything is going to come out good. So I would say work towards mastering your craft and getting really good at it. That way there's no shortcuts, there's no, fake smoke. You're the real deal. And once you're the real deal, you're good. You'll get clients, people will be happy, people will refer you. You'll be rewarded for your efforts once you put in the work. And that takes time. I don't remember the book or the study or something. How many hours does it take
I
to
think
like
10,000
master?
hours
Yeah, it's
to
10,000.
become a master and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I reached it, but I would say I think I reached it because I
Pretty
paint
sure you
like
did with 300 murals. Yeah.
no, but I like paint like 16 hours every day, like
Oh yeah.
savage. I mean, not painting, but like all the stuff that comes with it. So I'm pretty sure if I do the math, I'll pass that. But I would say like working towards that, whether you're gonna like teach kung fu or be a rapper, like whatever the fuck you're gonna do, like you got to put in the work.
It's true what you're saying, and I think a lot of people they give themselves a hard time, like, "Oh, I'm not here yet," or "I haven't," and it's like it takes time. Like Rome wasn't built in a day, right? I'm sure that your mural doesn't happen in 2 minutes.
And I mean, you never get to a point where you're like, okay, I made it here. I'm always learning and progressing and challenging myself. So to me, it's the next 10,000 hours.
Right.
And then after those passes, like, all right, the next 10,000. It's kind of the way you live your life. And the people who live long lives, a lot of them keep their minds active into their 70s, 80s, 90s with whatever they're doing, whether that's reading or making artwork or, just being passionate about things. I think if you lose your passion, that's when you start to like get sick mentally or physically. Not right away sick, but I'm talking over the course of 30 years, 40 years, Those people who are 100, they're like chipper, You don't meet a 100-year-old who's like, fuck, I'm still alive. I thought I was going to die like 10 years. No, those people are like, oh, my grandchildren, or I love my garden, or,
Yeah.
That's what keeps them alive, I would say.
I know you mentioned that you have a mentor. How would you say that having mentors in what you do, right,
Well,
has
it's
helped
important
you?
you say mentors because I think,
I know there's more than one. Always.
yeah, because some
That's what I
things
want to
are
know
like you
about.
pull from here, you pull from
Yeah.
there.
How do you feel like that has helped you excel your career?
I think it's inspiration and then, admiring them and trying to not imitate them, but kind of live to their levels of self-discipline or to what they do. A lot of athletes are really good role models and mentors. I mean, we don't get the benefit to know personal athletes personally, professionals, but from what we see when they play their sports and do their interviews, they're very disciplined, composed, they're focused, they're clutch. Being clutch is hard. Like when the game is on the line, when you have to submit a project, when you have to give a presentation and the pressure's on,
Yeah.
that's, that comes from putting in the work. So, I think mentors, reading things, because we all live life, it's like a cycle, whether there's reincarnation or we live multiple lives in multiple universes, who knows what. But the human experience seems to be that journey of like learning and living and loving, and it seems pretty universal at this point.
Yeah, I think that's something that I always think about too is like just in general, like in relationships and business, even with the relationship with yourself, like you're constantly evolving. Like every day that you wake up, and you might not notice it because humans we're so complex, but everything about us, our skin is changing,
Crazy.
follicles, things that we don't see, but it's like that is all happening. And you want to think that what you have going on or what you're trying to build is going to happen overnight, and it's not. So that's something that I always think about, and I tell people as well. So is there a mentor that comes to mind for you that has significantly impacted your life, that has taught you, something valuable?
Yeah, a lot of those. Well, are we talking about like human living mentors or like dead mentors? Because a lot of
Whatever.
them are dead.
That's okay.
I would go with the dead ones because
Okay.
those ones are pretty cool. They're inspiring. The living ones are still inspiring me. The dead ones you
Right.
gotta shout out.
Right.
Well, I would say one of the best like life coach inspirations is Jim Rohn. He's super cool.
I'm a
He's
fan.
Yeah, he's really inspiring. You know, he talks about those cycles of life and
The seasons.
yeah, the seasons. That stuff gets me hyped. And then uh I would say like a personal mentor. I mean, as an artist, I get to be influenced and look at artists without knowing them. So that's really cool. So I would say, you know, all the local artists that are have been painting Miami for 10, 15 years, the OGs, you know, that's pretty inspiring cuz they paved the way. It's like music, you
Right.
know, everyone kind of breaks the ice and paves the way. So I wouldn't really be able to paint street art murals if like the graffiti dudes weren't doing their thing.
Right.
So, you know, everything gets built off each other. So I would say, yeah, the different artists there, I look at all of them as kind of like mentors. And then I try to do the same thing with other artists I want to learn. I've helped a lot of artists with learning new skills and just kind of mentoring them. I also invest a lot of my business projects back into the business. So now I have like a boom truck, so I can go up 4 stories and paint buildings. I have a bunch of machines. I'm trying to get into a warehouse space to kind of scale and expand. So when you do that, you know, you can help put other people on and grow. And I mean, that's what it's about, I think.
I was gonna ask you that. So you actually read my mind. I was gonna ask you if there's anyone that you're actively mentoring.
Yeah, just
Something really
various
fun.
people randomly, kind of. Yeah, nobody at this moment super directly, but it it's kind of a at the moment hands-on kind of thing, you know. Like, oh, we're gonna paint together for a couple days. You want to learn? Those are our couple days of like mentorship, because you know I'm moving, I'm out
Right.
of town, I'm here, I'm have a lot of things I have to do, projects to propose.
Right. So what advice would you say that you would give your younger self, like 18-year-old Jonathan, trying to figure life out? What would you tell him now?
Uh,
I
what would
know.
I tell him now?
What would you tell him now if you went back in
I
time
would
and you
just
had a
tell him
conversation with
that
him?
that all the like weird bullshit that you're gonna go through, don't worry, it'll get better. That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I agree. Someone asked me that on another podcast that I did, and it stuck with me. And now I ask my every single one of my guests every time because I think it's so important to reflect on our lives. Like you were mentioning, life goes by so fast that we never take the time that we should to reflect, and we are just so hard on ourselves. I don't know if you experienced that as an entrepreneur, but I feel like we are the most harsh individuals on ourselves outside of being a regular person. Now you're a business person, and I think we're always thinking about what am I going to do next? How can I make this better? It could be a double-edged sword. What would you say? I know you mentioned one of the things that you had to overcome was anxiety when you were working on projects. What would you say outside of that is one of the biggest mental roadblocks that you've had to overcome in your journey as an entrepreneur and an artist?
Well, creative wise, I'm pretty good on that, so that wasn't too much of a challenge. I guess just one really important thing is that like when you get a project, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to keep looking for projects. You can't stop feeding the funnel because after those 2 weeks, right? That project's done. You need a new project.
Right.
And so I like to always have kind of like a back burner project that I'm starting while I'm kind of finishing another one, always be getting new leads. You have to feed the funnel because, you know, you might have 10 potential projects. Only 4 or 5 of them might be serious, good clients, and then maybe you only close 1 or 2 of them. But if you don't have the leads, if you don't have the funnel, you're going to just be like waiting for that random project to come to you, or you get lucky and you start it in time. And a lot of projects, they don't happen at the beginning. You know, they might go cold for 6 months or a year. And then that client might call you randomly one day to the next and be like, hey, I'm ready tomorrow. So you have to feed the funnel. And all these things I learned from working at LA Fitness and being like in this crazy sales atmosphere, super intense, 100 phone calls a day, selling 25 memberships in a gym, having a staff of 5 salesmen. It was super intense. Marketing, the whole nine. So
Heard you.
when you learn those skills and then you take it to something like the art world, it helps a lot. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you're selling. If you have those basic techniques of marketing, lead generation, proposals sent, follow-up, deposits received, if you just are adamant and stick to that, it doesn't matter really what you're selling.
I agree, and I think it's interesting that you had that sales background because, I mean, I could be wrong, but from my experience and what I've noticed when I talk to certain artists or creatives, that's actually what they struggle with. Because
My dad,
yeah,
nothing of that sort,
yeah.
like at all. So yeah, what you're saying is spot on.
And usually creatives use that as an excuse, like, oh, no, I'm creative. Like, this is what I'm good at. I'm not good at sales, you know?
And if that's your case and you aren't, you don't have the skills or that's not what you do, you know, you can outsource that.
Right.
There's a bunch of things that I'm really shitty at that, you know, I need help with.
We all need help.
Yeah, so I like to reference it to like you're like an octopus. You have all these tentacles, and each one is there for a certain purpose. And maybe, you know, some of your tentacles are stronger than the other ones. Maybe you need to hire another octopus homie to help you or something, you know, or get
That's
a
crazy.
or an
Octopus
agent AI.
That's funny. So I have a question for you. This is something that I get asked a lot now that I'm in my business journey, and I think it's funny now, but in the beginning, I could see why it's an obstacle for most people. The concept of a market being oversaturated, or there being already so many people that do what you do. So overcoming that, and I just want to know your thoughts on it. You know, what do you think about that concept?
Well, competition is what ultimately allows people to grow and try to be better than the rest of the playing field.
Right.
But without competition, you know, people would just be stagnant or they'd be comfortable. And everybody knows that when you're out of your comfort zone, that's when you grow, that's when you develop. So I think everyone has the potential to do well in their certain what they're wanting to accomplish, but a lot of it boils down to your mindset, how your vibrations are, what you attract. If you're grateful, right? All these little things is what separates people in their lives. And so I think that, you know, if you're disciplined and you're grateful and you're wanting to grow and learn, everybody knows that 9 out of 10 people, they're not really on that.
Yeah.
That's why when you meet people, well, people who are vibrating like that, when they meet other people, it fits well, it meshes well.
Yeah.
And it's not that people don't want to strive to be like that, right? It's just there's a lot of distractions. You know, there's a lot of anger in the world. There's a lot of hate. And so when you have that inside of you, it's hard to vibrate good and do great things. So I think that's what you have to focus on. And that's where the self-improvement, and then that reflects in everything you do. That reflects in your business. That reflects in the way you love your significant other, the way you love your kids. So it's all about that self, like being pure and having good energy. That's what I think is the most important.
That's an interesting perspective. I wasn't expecting that response.
Yeah, no, you got me flowing over there.
I
I'm
love
mixing
that.
a little bit of science with the business, with the art.
So the next question that I wanted to ask you is, in all this, right, what do you feel is one of the common taboos that people have about what you do, and what is the reality of it?
It's a lot of physical work. It's definitely not easy to move big ladders around, build scaffolding, deal with certain clients. Luckily, a lot of my clients now are super awesome, but they're not always like that. So just kind of like the physical part, the mental part, it takes a lot of energy to paint a mural. Sometimes, you'll be working on a project for a month, maybe 100 hours. Who knows? I don't even keep track, but I know I put in a lot of hours on some projects. But at the same time, when you're painting, it's very therapeutic, it's relaxing, but it is, tiring. So I would say, if you want to paint some walls, get ready to be on the floor, be up high, carrying paint around, being in the sun. There's a lot of different variables that can happen. So, but that's the fun part, is
Right.
the randomness.
Yeah.
Oh crap, we have everything set up and now it's raining on all our shit, like stuff like
Of
that is like,
course. Yeah.
or who knows, maybe your work van catches on fire, but nobody knows about that. So yeah. So just the challenges, physically, mentally, but it's very rewarding when you paint something and then you know that you painted it and it's not something that you can't be proud of. So that's the rewarding part,
Right.
being proud of your work.
I agree. So we were talking a little bit about distractions, and a question came to my mind, right, which is a very generic question. How do you deal with distractions?
Uh, no, I mean, I would for sure say I get distracted a lot. I've like,
So how do you manage that? How do you deal with that?
I guess I don't. I just do a bunch of random stuff and then like slowly things get done. Yeah, no. Deadlines maybe. So maybe like up until a deadline, I'm distracted with a bunch of things. And then as the deadline approaches, then I have to
Focus.
focus and also prioritize what I'm going to do, which makes the other things fall in line with what I'm prioritizing. So I guess I just live priority to priority.
I was just gonna say that. Yeah. No, I mean that's good advice. How do you deal with distractions? Priorities. Because when your priorities are here and your distractions are here, and they're kind of like fighting for your time and your attention, you're like, wait a minute. It's like the good angel and the bad angel.
And you can give a little love to the distractions. It's like I banged out a couple priorities. Let me dabble with this distraction a little bit. It's good too.
Yeah.
Give your mind a break.
So for artists, how would you say that you are able to achieve that work life balance? Because I think I've seen some artists and editors and like you guys never stop. You guys don't sleep. I hope you sleep. So how do you handle that in your life, the work life balance with your career?
Yeah, I'm not that good at it.
I love that you're honest.
But I mean, my excuse, I guess, is that, I'm single. So if I had like a girlfriend or wife, then I would have to have more work balance.
Right.
But I mean, what else am I going to do
Right.
right now? I'm chilling. I'm painting murals. I'm networking. I invite friends to the projects. I get to chill in my studio. I get to drive around, meet new business owners, see things, experience things. So, I mean, I guess, even if I travel somewhere, I'm going to be doing the same thing when I travel.
Right.
So I would say, I guess one day if I have kids and the whole nine, then work balance will become a priority.
Right.
And then maybe I'll just like wake up early and go paint from like 7 a.m. to 5 and then have the evenings free or something.
Yeah.
But now it's more like I go paint at like 10 a.m. and then I just finish when I
When you
want
finish.
to.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's funny that you brought up that topic because I think that's something that, well, I'm going to speak for myself. Being an entrepreneur and dating sucks. Like, it's so hard. And people ask you, I don't know if it happens to you, right? It happens to me. People love to give you accolades. Oh, you're so talented. You're good looking. You're this, you're that. Why are you not in a relationship?
Yeah.
Does that happen to you?
Yeah, for sure.
That happens to me all the time.
Or like
What's your answer for that? I'm curious.
Well, I think that happens when you're like kind of interested in somebody, right? Like back, or you're asking questions about their dating life or something like that. And then, yeah, they'll ask you like, oh, why aren't you with somebody? And, well, I mean, that's a complicated answer, but I would say, if you've loved somebody before, right? And if you don't feel that same kind of love that you felt before with the new person you're seeing or getting to know, then it's not going to work out.
Right.
because you have to love them at least as much as you love the people before or more. So I guess it's harder to find that person because you kind of have that standard. I mean, that's for me at least.
Right.
Maybe if over the course of some years, I go on a bunch of dates, maybe I feel that way about one of the girls once or twice, but maybe they don't feel that way about me. So we're not going to be together. So it kind of has to both hit at the same time.
So do you think it's a lack of reciprocal energy?
No, I think I've definitely felt that way about a few girls that didn't feel that way about me. So I just think that when I find that right one, it'll be reciprocal.
Right. That makes sense.
But also as an entrepreneur, you're not, it's also part of your like lifestyle. It's what you're doing. You do a little bit of it on a Saturday, on a Sunday. So maybe entrepreneurs, I don't know, I might have to ask ChatGPT. Maybe they end up with other entrepreneurs. Maybe they don't. I don't know. But I think it'd be cool to like be creative with my significant other, whether that's painting or whether that's them doing the more sales
Business
managerial
side.
side, or maybe it's them creating content with me or developing property. Like, who knows? I think that's important, because if I'm an entrepreneur and I'm always building these assets or hustles and stuff,
Right.
then if they're an entrepreneur, you're doing that together. So not all the time. It's not like you have to be together all the time.
Right.
But it's a way you spend time together.
Have you ever dated another entrepreneur?
Well, I mean, I don't want to talk shit on the podcast, but
listen, this is your time.
Yeah. But I mean, it boils back down to it's hard being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Right? I've been an entrepreneur now full time for 6 years, part time for 10.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of work to get to a point where you're talking to clients, you're getting an email, people are calling you. It takes a lot of time to get to that point. So, I'm not going to put that on anyone, but I think people, obviously there's young entrepreneurs who are beasts, right? They're like, I'm 25, I'm a millionaire.
Right, the YouTubers.
30 under 30 entrepreneur, right? But I think most ripe entrepreneurs are probably late 30s, early 40s, 50s, people who are oh, I have this property development, I have this investment, right? Those people who got their shit figured out. So maybe that sweetness hits, in your 30s or something. So I don't know.
No, I mean, there's no...
two good entrepreneurs in their 20s dating, that doesn't sound realistic.
No,
right?
I was asking you because my experience has been that I used to think that too. So I went through a period of time where I'm I'm only going to date entrepreneurs because I want them to have my same mindset and all that stuff. And so what I found...
But no bueno.
Yeah, so I'll tell you...
My artist homegirl, she always says that she never will date an artist.
I was just going to ask you that. Have you ever dated another artist?
No.
No. Mm-hmm. So my experience with being with another entrepreneur, it's true what you're saying. You guys relate. There's a lot of synergy in your thought process and your mindset. But then the issue that happened to me that I confronted myself with was that everybody's so into their work that they just, it's this is my work. And so there was a lack of time, personal time, because let's say that you work with your significant other, right? Because you're physically together does not mean that you're spending quality time.
That's funny you say that, because that's what my mom says to me.
Really?
My mom, when I hang out with my mom, she wants, obviously I'm engaged, I'm hanging out with my mom, right? But I'm I always paint and do mock-ups or working on a canvas. If you catch me anywhere, that's what I'm doing.
Doodling.
Yeah, I'm doing something art related. And if we're hanging out, if you and me are going to hang out and chill, there's a good chance I'll still be talking to you and hanging out, but I might be working on my iPad or doing something. Right. So she'll say that. She'll just be hey, don't think that we're just because we're together, that this counts as hanging out with me. And I'll be oh shit, okay, let me chill for a little bit.
That's what I'm saying. Relationships in general doesn't have to be romantic.
Yeah.
With your family, it's tough because they think that you don't care about them. They think that, oh, you never make time for me. You never spend time with me. And when you're in the pursuit of something greater than yourself, unfortunately, there will be periods of time where it's going to seem that way and they're going to feel neglected. And you might even neglect other things in your life. But I think... obviously, as long as you're not stuck in that place forever, it's kind of like a phase that I think we go through during entrepreneurship, but eventually it's what you're saying, like, because you don't have that person or that family that you've already created, you don't have that pressure or that priority, so you just don't prioritize it. And I think that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with. It's like, in a perfect world, maybe, I mean, not, I wouldn't speak for everyone, but most people, want to be in a relationship and whatnot, and eventually have a family, but they're so focused into what their world is, whether it's their career, their business, that they never really make the time for it. And you have to be intentional about everything that you do in life, whether it's dating, whether it's business. So I always tell my friends, my business friends, if you want a relationship, just be intentional about it, but be honest about where you're at in life. Maybe you're going through a rebuilding process in your business, and communicate with your partner, like let them know, hey, I'm rebuilding, so this is what's up. And if they decide they're not with it, then at least you were honest. So that's been
Totally.
my experience.
Yeah, it's not easy.
It's not.
It's challenging.
Very
But
challenging.
at
So
least we're here for the ride.
yeah, I mean, most people are not, and I think that's something that is hard to find friends. Even, I don't know if it happened to you. When I started my journey, I lost a lot of friends, and they would always tell me, "Well, you're always working, and you're a workaholic."
Like when they invite you to things you
Yeah,
might not go, and
yeah,
then they might feel a certain
right. And
way.
so it's very painful to go through that experience where people feel that way and they leave your life, but the ones that were gonna stick it through with you always will. So
And you meet more like-minded people.
right, but that's something hard. So how would you say that experience has been for you, like pursuing what you want full time and losing friends or losing people in your life that you thought were gonna be there and now they're not,
Yeah, well,
or you're
I'm not
lucky
gonna
that never
say
happened to
I'm not
you?
gonna say I'm selfish, but I guess
It's
uh,
okay to be selfish. I think we're all selfish.
I guess if we're not vibing, if you feel a certain way about what I'm doing, then you know
There's
we got
more.
smoke.
Yeah.
You're my op. Gonna roll you up.
That's a funny perspective. But most people don't have that. Most people are too, like, they care too much about what others think. And I think that's one of the biggest issues that most people have to overcome.
I mean, I would say I care what people think. I'm just very like aware of what people might observe or think. But knowing that somebody might be thinking of something about you and then taking it as uh like a self reflective observation of why they might feel that way or like look or think what their perception of you is, right? You can say like fuck everybody, fuck everyone's perception of me, but that's not like good vibes, right? So you want to be empathetic, you want to be nice, you want to uplift people, right? But not everyone is going to be responsive to that.
Right.
So yeah, I don't even remember what the question was, but
I basically asked you what you think in terms of, like, when you're dealing with pursuing your passion, and then now all of a sudden.
oh yeah. So I guess when you have that mindset, what's important, your goals are important. When you have clear goals, and that stuff doesn't really like phase you. But if you don't have clear goals, then those things can really like sink in deep, or like why is this happening, or they
Right.
can affect you. But if you're clear on what you're trying to accomplish, then that's just water under the bridge. It's not like a big deal.
I agree.
And you don't really take it like, don't hold it to them either.
Yeah, I always tell people that it's like, God gave you that vision. Don't expect others to see it. So it's going to be normal for you to, even with family, like it happened to me when I started. And you also have to remember that most of these people in your life have your best interest. And because they have your best interest, they're just scared because fear of the unknown, right? Like they don't know what's going to come out of it and they just want what's best for you. But I think that's when believing in yourself and, like you said, being clear on your goal and your vision is important. Once you start to execute it, then they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, no, it helps that both my parents are like super chill, and they always, supported my dreams and what I was wanting to accomplish my whole life. So that's a huge plus, because I know other people whose parents try to control their lives,
Yeah.
and that's super whack. You just kind of have to like support them for the ride and give them the best opportunities. Because if you don't let them learn from their own mistakes, or if you don't let them fuck up, then they're going to be weak.
Yeah, that's true. So what would you say is next for you? Like, what's next for Jonathan and his journey?
I'm just trying to scale my brand and make it more professional. That's about it. I know what I can do. I'm very confident with my work and executing different projects and figuring things out. So I'm not really afraid of like new big projects, which is good because it's not always like that. Sometimes projects can be very intimidating. I would say now I've like figured out so many random things and projects and challenges that I'm confident with my process and figuring things out. And that's about it, just scaling and being more professional. And when I say more professional, in terms of like web presence, presentation, like legal, those kind of things, stuff that
Right.
my octopus tentacle isn't as strong as the other ones. But that's just my next pursuit.
Okay, so for our audience that's listening to you today and watching you, how can they find you? Where can they see your art? And how can they hire you? Let's say maybe a business owner is
Yeah.
listening to this right now and they check out your artwork and they want to hit you up. How can they find you?
Two ways. The most simple would be Instagram, which is just at J.O.artwork, J.O. artwork. There you can see my work, send me a DM. And then also my website. If you don't have Instagram, my website is olayamurals.com. That's Olaya murals.com. And then there you can submit a proposal application and see my work too.
So for our Miami natives, where can they find your artwork if they're driving around?
It's pretty random. There's a lot of projects. Like just driving over here, I pass like 4.
Really?
That happens all the time. Like a
How does that
route.
make you feel?
Well, I'm doing so much like shit
Does it
at the
make you feel
moment.
proud of yourself?
Yeah. I mean, I'll like still kind of be like, oh, I don't really like that one, or oh, the color's fading a little bit on that one, or oh, that client was an asshole, or like just random thoughts like that. I mean, after so many years and so many projects, you get a flow. You just kind of flow. So when things come around full circle is when I'm like proud of myself. For example, this moment here, being on a podcast talking about my artwork, I haven't done a podcast episode since I used to do them myself, which was 6 years ago. And I did like 25 full production ones. So this is a full circle moment for me. It's like, oh, wow, I used to make podcasts because I found artists really interesting and I was trying to become an artist. And now I'm doing a podcast talking about my artwork and I'm not setting up the cameras. I don't have to edit it.
Right.
So that's like a full circle moment. So those moments are what make me feel proud. Another moment today that's happening that's full circle along with this podcast is when I first started to try to sell my artwork and my dad's artwork. We would go to Wynwood Marketplace and set up a tent and sell artwork. But that was like 7 years ago.
Really?
Before Wynwood Marketplace had all the containers, the crates, and like the big permanent installed roof. And it's like this whole thing now, right?
Yeah.
Back then it was like literally
A tent.
one bar container and like 50 vendors with tents. Did you ever go back in the day?
Yeah, I remember. And actually, it's funny. I can't believe it's been 7 years. I remember when you used to post about it. You used to
Oh,
post
yeah?
that you
Yeah,
went with your
yeah,
dad. It's been that long. That's so crazy.
And so today, my other homie, he got like a small little logo mural gig for one of his friends that's opening a parrilla. And he hit me up. He's like, yo, come help me. I need some stencils. I show up, do the stencils, paint it. And then the owner wanted like some embers from a fire in the background. And then we were like, oh, you should do my pattern black on black, glossy on flat. Because when it's glossy on flat, it's super sexy. You like walk by it and the light shimmers off it evenly and like moves. It's like reflective. It's a really cool interactive pattern I do. And so the full circle moment is that I'm there today painting my pattern. And 7 years ago, I used to like literally set up the tent like where I'm painting that and like sit there and sell art. Like before I painted murals, before the pattern and everything. And now I'm like painting a pattern in the same spot. So those like full circle moments when you kind of do something, learn, and it like circles all the way back around, you're like, damn. That's the weird thing about like life and cycles and all that. That's what the Mayans, the whole calendar, it's like repetitive cycles. That's like what their calendar is, kind of, sort of.
Yeah, no, I mean it's funny that you mentioned that. It's true. I think I think we can all agree with you, for those of us who have chosen this journey of entrepreneurship, where and the other side of it, it's like it's also full circle when now you're someone once upon a time was teaching you, and now you're teaching someone. Those are my full circle
Those
moments,
are the best.
and I'm just like, and it's so funny to think that at one point you doubted yourself and you weren't sure of what you were doing, but you did it anyway, and because you did that, now there's someone who looks up to you, and now considers you to be a professional in the industry, and pretty much they become your fans, like your admirers. It's the weirdest thing. Like, I don't know if it happens to you, but I always think about, like, I'm not special. I'm not, I'm not any different than this individual. I just decided to pursue my passion, which is how we started off this interview, and that's essentially what you did. So I commend you for that, because I know how challenging it is, and
You too, you too.
it takes balls,
Yeah, no, it's definitely fun
guts,
too, and don't be
everything.
scared to try it. Like, do it, fuck up, fail, get a job again, do it again, do it again. Like, there's no reason you shouldn't be doing it.
I agree.
And even you don't even have to jump into it full throttle. You can just build it slowly, consistently, and sometimes those things that you build consistently over time, those are the things that are the most stable.
I agree. Is there anywhere that we could go watch you do like live painting? Is that like a thing, or you don't do that yet?
I mean, I do it, but it's kind of random.
Yeah,
If you want to see me paint live, just DM me and I'll tell you where we're at and
I
you can
think
pull up.
I think it would be cool.
Yeah, I mean, occasionally I do some
Yeah,
live painting.
I think it would be great for marketing.
Yeah, the thing is that like when you have a couple big projects, te mata. You're like there painting all day and then someone else hits you up. But painting live is cool. Painting live is cool.
Have you done collaborations with other artists?
Yeah, far and few in between, but not when I say I want to like scale and get more professional and stuff, that's in terms of what I mean, like working with bigger brands, working with bigger artists, making better content, the presentation, those things. Because I'm confident with the artwork, so now it's like making those other things better.
Okay, so any final thoughts before we go?
No, thank you so much for inviting me. You're awesome. And I don't know if I should promote the credit company, but
No, you
Credit Garland. No, I'm just kidding.
don't. So it was such a pleasure having you here today. And I think that definitely hearing you, it inspired me too, because oftentimes I get into this bubble where I'm like, I'm the only one. And it's like to hear someone else like share their story, and it's like, okay, I'm not the only one. And for other entrepreneurs, you're not alone, or even people who are wanting to pursue something, you're not alone. Learn from our mistakes. If you ever have any questions, up and coming artists, I'm pretty sure, people ask you questions all the time, and you're always a fountain of knowledge. So thank you so much for being here with me today,
Thank you. Thank you.
and we'll catch you guys next time.
Take it easy.